I've already done top 3 tanks. If you want to see that, just go check it out on the channel. But today I'm going to quick fire all the reasons why Resto Shaman, Disc Priest and Resto Druid are my top 3 healer choices and why you should probably play one of them when Mr. Pandaria comes. Or probably in the pre-patch, so you're at least ready for MoP. Firstly, I'm sure it will come to no surprise if you've seen any videos about Mr. Pandaria at all. My first choice would be Resto Shaman. I do think Resto Shaman's going to be one of those healing classes that you are going to be seeing stacked in 25-man and an absolute staple of every 10-man group. They are pretty much the holy paladin of Mr. Pandaria. Not only do they bring insane AoE healing by having everyone stacking your healing rain, they get the addition of Healing Tide Totem, which heals 12 players in 25-man and 5 in 10-man, but it pulses every 2 seconds, healing for an absolute truckload of healing. Of course, they still bring Mana Tide Totem as well to get some mana back for all of your casters. Spirit Link Totem, which is just as powerful in Mr. Pandaria as it has been in Cataclysm. But you even get an offensive buff now as well called Stormlash Totem, which is on a 5-minute cooldown, and it empowers your entire raid, causing attacks to trigger bursts of electricity, dealing additional nature damage to their target. Now, this does add up across the entire raid, and when you've got multiple shamans dropping this back to back, it's just a ton of extra damage. You even get the addition of Capacitor Totem now, which is a fantastic AoE stun, particularly strong in places like challenge modes. The general healing style hasn't changed that much, but you get some really good quality of life changes which you might have been used to in Cataclysm from certain set bonuses. For example, when you chain heal a target with Riptide on them, the heal is still going to be 25% more effective, but chain heal no longer actually consumes the Riptide effect, the same way that the tier 12 set actually stopped that from happening as well. If you enjoy weaving in lightning bolts to get mana back, that's not going to change because you've got a glyph that gives you 2% of your mana anytime lightning bolt strikes an enemy. The fantastic thing now is without Spirit Walker's Grace, you can actually cast Lightning Bolt while moving. That is such a big one, to be able to on the move get mana back when you're moving from A to B. Absolutely fantastic. And then means you've still got Spirit Walker's Grace for if you need to heal while you're moving. Some of the talent choices are absolutely amazing, like Echo of Elements, where it's got a chance to proc Echo of Elements and duplicate any damage or healing spell you cause. And Ancestral Guidance is a really strong raid cooldown that you can use that just amplifies the amount of healing that you're putting out. Another option outside of Ancestral Guidance, though, which I do really like on stacked fights, is Conductivity. Basically, when you're stood in your healing rain casting, most of your abilities extend the duration by 3.5 seconds, which then just takes your healing rain up to a 40-second duration. So being able to put healing rain down and stand there and heal and do lightning bolts like you ordinarily would and not need to worry about putting healing rain down every 10 seconds feels absolutely amazing. Overall, the Resto Shaman just brings so much output in terms of HPS and cooldowns to your raid that it's just a must-have. There's no surprise Disc Priest has made it in at number 2 because it is super strong. The key things you need to know about are Spirit Shell, which is an amazing cooldown, and it's only on a 1-minute cooldown as well, which causes all of your heals over the next 10 seconds to no longer heal, but instead create absorption shields that last 15 seconds. So on very high predictable damage that's going to come in, you can basically just get Spirit Shell out on as many people as possible, and sometimes almost completely negate the damage that's about to come in. Atonement has changed now, so it's added Penance into it as well, so it's Smite, Holy Fire and Penance, and it heals a nearby low health target for 90% of the damage dealt. The great thing now about Atonement is it's 40 yards, so now you're actually going to be able to use Atonement to reliably heal your range DPS, not just your tanks and melee. With your level 90 talents being Cascade, Divine Star and Halo, you've got a big heal on a fairly short cooldown for any situation. With Cascade if everyone's spread out, Divine Star if everyone's clumped up, and Halo if you can be at that perfect 25-yard distance and let out a really big AoE burst of healing, which also does damage as well. You just have a heal for every situation now as Disc. And if in Cataclysm when you start casting Penance, something spawns under your feet and you need to move, you don't even need to worry about that anymore. Because while Glyph of Penance increases the mana cost by 20%, it now allows you to cast it while moving, which is a really fair trade-off. And finally, the movement you can bring to individuals that need it in your raid with things like Body and Soul, which will be nothing new to you because it ordinarily comes from talents anyway, but for Holy Priests. But now you get Angelic Feather, where on a 10-second recharge with 3 charges, you can place a feather down that increases movement speed by 80%, for 6 seconds for the next person that walks through it. Now you're going to be able to macro this to cast it directly on the person that you want it on anyway, and it's just fantastic. So if a tank needs to move out for a mechanic, you can give them a feather, they've now got 80% movement speed. Overall, the Disc Priest is absolutely solid, and while I could probably talk about it for another 15-20 minutes, I want to keep this as short as possible. So let's move on to Resto Druid. With me being fully biased towards Druid straight away, I have to say Resto Druid is actually the most fun healer to play, in my opinion. On the face of it, Resto Druid plays almost how it has for the last few expansions, where you're keeping Life Bloom on a tank, you're spreading hots across the raid, and you're just watching that big HPS rack up. The thing is, it's had some minor additions that just make it even more overpowered, and while it's an absolute powerhouse of health per second, the one area it lacks in is raid utility. With the only real raid cooldown that you get being Tranquility still, it's just a raw healing cooldown. So it's not like Spirit Shell where you can stop that incoming damage because you're building the absorbs up. It's not like Spirit Link where it equalizes everyone's health and does damage reduction as well. This is just pure throughput. And that's kind of where a Resto Druid excels. It excels at just everyone being stacked up and pumping out huge HPS. So in my opinion, an absolute must-have in a 25-man raid, and in 10-man raids, it's a great third healer. So if it was a Boomy main spec, and then Resto off spec. Because having the ability to be able to put a mushroom down that gives permanent efflorescence, and then what happens with this mushroom is all of your rejuve overhealing goes into the mushroom up to a maximum of 200% of your health. And then you have a new ability called Bloom where you can bloom this mushroom and it will then divide all that healing amongst everybody hit. But the glyph of efflorescence is not only overpowered but a must-have for every Resto Druid, because this is what turns your mushroom into basically a permanent healing rain. You can put it down anywhere you want, you can move it and not lose the power that is generated from your overhealing, so there's absolutely no negative to this whatsoever. Being able to still get Tree of Life if you want it through a talent being Incarnation, now actually having a damage reduction cooldown to be able to put on a tank, so it's not a raid cooldown, like I said, you really lack in the raid cooldown department, but you do get Iron Bark, which is on a 1 minute cooldown, and it's a 20% damage reduction for your tank. So having this in as part of a rotation with things like your Warrior's Vigilance means you can keep damage reduction cooldowns on your tank almost all the time. Being able to use Dream of Cenarius, which basically turns you into an Atonement Druid because your Wraths do more damage and heal for the amount of damage dealt, and even when you go into Bear or Cat form, you're gaining all of your intellect as agility, so you can actually do some damage in Cat form during downtime, or, you know, if you was just sort of a backup healer. Resto Druid is absolutely fantastic and had to make my top 3 because honestly I think out of the other choices being Holy Paladin and Mistweaver and Holy Priest, I suppose I should mention as well, Resto Druid just puts out insane numbers. It does of course bring other raid utility as well with things like knockbacks and Ursul's Vortex, which is a particular favourite of mine where anyone that moves out of the Vortex gets sucked back in, so it's absolutely amazing for gathering up adds or keeping adds stacked. The Resto Druid is just a really good option, but outside of having the ability to be able to put your efflorescence anywhere you want with your mushroom, stacking the big heals up on the mushroom to bloom it, it plays very, very similar to how it has for the last couple of expansions. And they're my top 3 healers. Next up will be top 3 melee DPS. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. There are much more deep dive videos into all of these classes, so just go check them out on the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.